As I look back over my story, I had this heart for adventure. But what I really see is a trajectory of playing it safe. Where can I manage risk? I really lacked initiation. I lacked fathering. I was a boy in a man's world. I was playing it safe with God.
We've been following Adam's story, kind of the mythic story of every man in the world, and we skipped over too quickly the birthday present that God gives Adam. This wild world. I mean, think of it. The rivers, the mountains, the oceans, right? Thunderstorms and waterfalls, and only Eden is a garden, by the way. The whole world is left untamed, and Adam is given the charge to rule and subdue. And the Hebrew there is fierce mastery. Think of it. No one's discovered physics yet. No one has charted the oceans. No one's climbed a mountain. No one has written a poem, right? Adam's about to do that when he meets Eve. No one has discovered architecture or medicine or law. All of it that is latent in the world, all of it that is latent in us, is waiting to be discovered, waiting for good men to venture out into adventures and bring a loving, strong hand to see the world flourish. We are wired for adventure, guys. Just wired for it. You see it in little boys, and you see it in the deep longings of men, even if it's only in their boredom. Even if it's only right now in the heartache of if only. I want to give you 3 categories to just help you think about how adventure might begin to fit into your life. There's casual adventure, there's crucial adventure, and then there's critical adventure. Casual adventure. You love to run, you love to ski, right? You love to travel. You love being a chef. You love exploring things in the kitchen. It's the daily, weekly stuff. It's just adventure on a small scale that just nourishes us. You got to get out. You got to fish or golf or bike, just something that nourishes the soul. Crucial adventure is a little more high stakes, okay? It's where we start a company. It's connected to our career, our mission, our calling. Every man needs a mission to his life. You might want to travel and teach English as a second language, or bring clean water to undeveloped countries in the world. You might want to start a school, right? Or start your own company, plant a church. It's important that we don't confuse career or job with mission and calling. Paul was a tent maker. I mean, he literally spent his daytime hours just sewing fabric to pay his way in the world. And then it was evenings and weekends that he was the itinerant missionary and preacher. So casual adventure and crucial adventure do really important things in us. And here's the fascinating thing. We love it and we fear it, because adventure calls us out. And it's in so many ways, it's here that God does the formation of the masculine soul. We are all unfinished men. There's a lot of boy in every man, and God uses adventure to nourish us, yes, to encourage us, but he keeps bringing the stakes up. Have you noticed that? To take us into a story where he uses it for our formation. He uses it to develop strength and courage and integrity and wisdom and cunning and love.
I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in the suburbs, on just this little ribbon of wild space behind our house, this little nature preserve. It was kind of the escape from suburbia. I remember most of my childhood was also framed by being very overweight. The wounding in my life led me to pretty deep anorexia in 7th grade, and just that inner feeling of weakness. And so much of it was embodied in adventure. There was just fear of engagement, fear of risk-taking, playing it safe, being uncomfortable around wilderness and men that were really good with their hands. And I took one trip west when I was a kid in summer with my dad. We went fly fishing down in Durango, and for 5 days we just had the West, and it was adventure and a Jeep and campfires and fly fishing gorgeous rivers, and it got in my soul. There was something that was untamed, bigger than me, out of my control, something good and beautiful. I knew that there was more that I needed to get back in my soul, more than just becoming a Christian, more than just a salvation. I needed restoration as a man. And so I chased after that. I threw myself in the wilderness. I remember the first time I bought a mountain bike. And then I got into hunting, had some buddies that pulled me into that, and just threw myself into it. I'm a learner and I wanted to try. And it was just one failure after another. You come out here and you're at the mercy. You're at the mercy of the weather. You're at the mercy of the land. You're at the mercy of the animals, and you feel really small. I remember distinctly one story. We were out early in our hunting, 4 of us, and we split up in 2s. We're coming off the mountain, off of King Mountain in the dark. And out of fear of not cliffing out on this one section, we pushed too far south. And these are in the days of paper maps. There's no GPS. And I look at the paper map realizing 30% chance cliffing out, 30% chance making it to civilization, and 30% chance just wandering. And this fear set in. Like, I am a young man that cannot handle myself in wilderness. And like, it's on me. I remember just the panic. It wasn't about wilderness travel. It was about my soul and deficiency. As I look over the years from that moment, the story of adventure was the story of really God shepherding my soul from boy to man. It was a story of being initiated as a man and fathered as a son. Some of these aspens have been scraped that you can see, a couple of the smaller ones, but we'll find a good, like that's a fresh scrape right there, that wasn't eaten. Those aspens up there are just prime elk habitat. In the world, to live a life of soul, you have to tune out 90% of the inputs, and in wilderness, you have to tune in to 90%. My world just gets loud with people, loud with places, and loud with things. And out here, it gets quiet. It's such a fundamentally different way of being in the world. Something gets restored, something gets healed, something gets reoriented. There's 4 things that are going to keep me alive: fire, hydration, shelter, and signaling. And I've got to have those 4 things no matter what. A lot of it's trial and error. A lot of it's getting out there and being too hot, too cold, too hungry, too lost. Out here, I learned that the way is failure. It's one of the greatest teachers. God has a lot to bring to a man in love and care through failure. A lot of those pursuits were a reach to get my question answered. I've always had an adventurous heart, but it was a reach for validation. So either by throwing myself into an adventure or avoiding one, playing it safe. It was always a question of where will I be validated, risking going deeper into an adventure that's not just the physical adventures, the wilderness adventures, but it's really an adventure with God. to live your whole life in a way where God has to show up.
Did you hear the progression in that? The casual adventure that was nourishing his soul growing, and through some failures and through some trials into the more crucial adventure where he really experienced initiation from his Father, forming things, shaping things, healing things in his soul. And then that brings us to what he named at the very end, which is critical adventure. Critical adventure is the deepest, it's the most profound, it is the most beautiful. Critical adventure is adventure with God. And it's adventure that requires God. It requires an intimacy that most men have not yet formed. But when you do, it's awesome. Here's the problem. Most of us, still back in the poser, still in the boy, still not dealing with our wounds, most men are playing it safe, right? And guys, here's the deal. The amount of risk that you're willing to live with is a direct indication of your belief about God, of whether or not he's good and whether or not he's here for you. Jesus told a story about that called the parable of the talents. You can find it late in the Gospel of Matthew, but here's how it goes. There's a guy who has some allies. He has some partners, some servants, and he's about to leave on a trip, and he entrusts them with his property, gives them talents, money, opportunities, and says, hey, invest this, and when I get back, we'll see how things go, and you'll be richly rewarded. And the first guy goes out and takes some risks, and he doubles his investments or his opportunities or his gifts or whatever all that means. And then the second guy goes out and he also, sees some fruit from his labors. The third guy is the problem in the story. The third guy fears the master. He does not trust the heart of God. And so what he does is he takes everything he's been entrusted with and he buries it under the front porch. And then he just sits on his hands and waits for the master to return. And when he gets back, he just says, here, right? I knew you were a hard man, right? And so here's your money back. Okay. His story does not go so well. He is thrown into outer darkness where there is wailing and gnashing of teeth. Yikes. Okay. Because he did not love or trust the heart of the master. He would not venture out. He played it safe out of fear and self-protection. And Jesus said, he who seeks to save his life will lose it. All those things that we do to self-protect, it sabotages relationship. You know that. All those things we do to get control of our life, oh man, we just end up in such a small story. We end up hating our own life. We get everything buttoned down, everything secure, and then we're dying inside. This was my story. I had a pretty successful career in Washington, D.C. I was a young buck climbing the ladder, and I was getting rewards. I went to White House meetings. I sat in on Supreme Court hearings. I was the up-and-comer. And I was dying inside. It wasn't me. It was a total misfit. I was living out of so much of my fear and the poser and the false self. And finally one day I said to Stace, I can't take it anymore. This is killing me. And I knew what I really wanted to do. What I really wanted to do, I wanted to go back to grad school. I wanted to get a degree in counseling. And I wanted to fight for the hearts of men. And so I walked away. We moved away on a wing and a prayer. I came to Colorado, went to grad school, but right at that moment, right at the moment of critical decision, this is where the test usually comes. I get a phone call, and it's another DC firm offering me more money, a really cool position, super prestigious, moving in some very influential circles. And I'm like, whoa, look at that. I could feel it. Like, am I going to fall back into safety, control, the false self, or am I going to journey on with God? And the choice to go on with God has resulted in all of this. Wild at Heart came out of that. This series came out of that. All of our work with men around the world. Critical adventure, right? Stepping into the unknown with God. And now let me give you a little bit of counsel about that, okay? Because I know that sounds super attractive and super scary, but here's the thing. You cannot master enough principles or education or rules or Bible verses to solve all of the coming problems in your life. Like, where do I go? What do I do? What is the next adventure you have for me? Is this casual? Is this crucial? I don't even know the next step. Listen, you have something so much better than principles. You have relationship. You have relationship with God. Back in John 10, we talked about the thief who comes, steal, kill, and destroy. We talked about God's intentions for us, our life. Okay, but Jesus does put a condition on that. And the condition is this. 4 times in that chapter, he says, my sheep hear my voice. They listen to me and they follow me. Right? There's no substitute for a conversational intimacy with God. Staying close, listening to what he's saying, asking him to initiate us, asking him to father us, asking him what was next. I didn't go make those major life decisions without praying, without talking to my pastor, without getting some counsel. I wanted to know where God was headed. I wanted to stay close with him. And it's a beautiful life, my brothers, whether it's casual and he just wants to take you out for a weekend and nourish your soul, or it's crucial and it's time for maybe a career change or to chase a dream, or it's critical and he is calling you out and into your life with him. He's here. He speaks. He fathers us. Romans 8:14, Paul says, those who are led by the Spirit of God, they are the sons of God. And that is a life that is available to every man. That's not for the special or the few. That's not just for John Eldredge, who wrote the book and made the film series. This is for everyone. This is the invitation of the gospel.
And Morgan, what I so appreciate about this story and the journey of adventure that you're sharing is at the beginning you're describing the search for validation and the adventure being the conduit for you seeking and searching and finding that validation. But the more you move from those early years to the present time, your emotions come up, because what I see is that the motivation is no longer that. Your motivation is now love.
Every year I find myself on a solitude trip, a solo backcountry archery hunt of some sort. And it's not about the hunting. The hunting gets me there, but it does become all about love. My wife married an unfathered boy. She married an uninitiated man. I've come to see God as the centerpiece of this kingdom story, that I have a very particular place and a very chosen role. With my kids, and now they're teenagers, and bigger kids and bigger challenges. Now bringing my kids into adventure, we went to a survival school and it was awesome. I want to become the man that God meant when he meant me. And that only comes through the context of risk-taking. What I've found in my story is that adventure has exceeded just the physicalness of it. I love mountain biking, I love archery hunting, but that's just the mythic expression. It's something so much deeper, that the adventure has really become the epicenter of my walk with God. When we truly learn how to walk with God, every day becomes adventure.
We are all unfinished men. There's a lot of work to be done in us, but we are not on our own. There's a lot of things in us that yet need to be dismantled. the poser, the false self, the old ways of living, our addictions. There's a lot in us that yet needs to be healed. More wounds to be discovered, more agreements to be broken. And our Father is here to take us into that initiation journey. He is all about this. This is the central journey. It is the move from boy to man, from broken to whole, from bondage to freedom. We need you, and the world needs you to become the man that you were born to be.